Thank you, Dr. Arun, for your wonderful introduction. Very good morning, dear participants. It's my immense pleasure to share a session in Atal-sponsored FDP on drug engineering through bioprospecting. So, which is conducted by Department of Biotechnology, Dr. NGP Arts and Science College. So, first I would like to thank the Atal for providing sponsorship to us to conduct this event in a successful manner. Further, I am very much happy to share some of the ideas related with microbial bioprospecting and drug engineering, so which is the core objective of this FDP program. For the past 4 days, all our guests and eminent resource persons, they have explained about what is bioprospecting, what are all the various advanced techniques used in bioprospecting, and how those techniques can be used for drug engineering process, and what is the need of drug engineering. So all those things covered by our resource persons in an excellent manner. So in this session, I would like to cover the basic aspects of microbial bioprospecting and how it is useful for the drug engineering process. Then, what are all the techniques involved as our previous resource person discussed. So I'm going to list the techniques alone, so I'm not going to much elaborate view about the techniques. Then, I'm going to discuss about 2 studies, so which is conducted in our lab, which is related with the microbial bioprospecting related to the drug engineering process. Then the main motto of this session is how bioprospecting research can be carried out with limited infrastructural facilities. Since I am from the self-financing institution, so we have some limitations in the infrastructures as like the central government institutes and the research institute. So those who have very good infrastructural facilities, central instrumentation facilities, advanced instrumentation facilities, so MALDI, so like that, the many advanced instruments are there. If you take most of the self-financing institutions, so there most of the faculties, those who are having the drive to do research, they have the question that how is it possible that means to proceed a research without limited infrastructural facilities. For that only I have given example, that means how we have conducted our studies by using the limited infrastructural facilities. Then obviously at the last part of the session will be a discussion part. So I am happy to clarify your doubts or any questions raised by you with reference to microbial bioprospecting and drug engineering. So this will be the objective of our session. For the next 1 hour to 1.5 hours, we will be discussing about these topics. So let us move on to the subject. So the title is Microbial Bioprospecting and Drug Engineering. I hope most of you people, you know that means what is bioprospecting, because for the past 4 days, so in somehow, somewhere, our resource person used to touch this tape, that's what is bioprospecting. So anyhow, it's a customized thing before starting any event, that means we have to discuss the basics. So based on that concept, so it's my bound duty to tell in the broader sense what is bioprospecting. So if you take bioprospecting is defined as a systemic and organized search for useful products derived from bioresources, including plants, microorganisms, animals, etc. that can be developed further for commercialization and the overall benefits of the society. So the core content which is there in the definition of bioprospecting is whatever the bioresources which is available in the universe that can be used for the development of product development. In turn, that product development can be used for the commercialization. Obviously, all those things we are going to do for the betterment of human resources. If you take the bioresources as defined in the definition, plants, microorganisms, animals, these are all the 3 major sources. So obviously we know that, so plants already 2-3 sessions we had with the plant bioprospecting, Dr. Geeta, Dr. Gopal, then Dr. Arulmurugan. So all those people, they have elaborately covered the plant bioprospecting. Then if you take the marine environment, so there also we have a lot of bioresources. Apart from that, we have microorganisms. So under the classes of microorganisms, we have bacteria, fungi, virus. So like that, we have streptococcus. So like that, different classes of microorganisms. So all those things will be considered as the bioresources. So in this session, we are going to focus on the microbial bioprospecting. So before moving into that, a small fact about the Indian biodiversity, because many people, so they used to tell that bioprospecting in the synonymous way, it's a biodiversity prospecting. So we all know that India is the mega diversity country. So where we have only 2.4% of the land area, so which holds the 7 to 8% of the recorded species of the world. So it's a little bit older data. Maybe now we may have the numbers, we may have the small changes. So the special reference to microorganisms, in India itself we have 278,000 or 79,000 species of microorganisms that is so far reported. So with this diversity of microorganisms, how this can be used for our betterment. So that is the motto of our talk. Then what is microbial bioprospecting? So it mainly comprises the strategies to exploit culturable and non-culturable shares of the microbial biodiversity for the betterment of human being. Of course, Dr. Selvin, Professor Selvin, he shared about the synthetic biology, shared information about the synthetic biology, and Professor Ranjit, he shared about the metagenomics, that was the first session, so that is used for the non-culturable microorganisms. So like that, whatever may be the microorganism, so especially the bacteria, whether it's culturable or non-culturable, so today we have the technology and the techniques that means to use those things for the bioprospecting purpose, especially for the drug development. Of course, it's a very basic thing. We all know that means what is drug. So it's a therapeutic agent or any substance other than food used in the prevention, diagnosis, the treatment or cure of disease. So that compound or that molecule will be called as the drug. Of course, we all know that what is engineering. So it's to solve the problems by using the scientific knowledge. So whatever the informations we have in our hand, or whatever the techniques or technology we have in our hand, so those molecular biology techniques, especially the molecular biology techniques and the bioinformatic tools, that can be used for the engineering of drugs. So that domain we will broadly be call it as drug engineering. So already we have the conventional methods. In the conventional methods, especially by using the basis of chemistry, we used to produce the drugs. There we have a lot of limitations. So usage of chemicals, we need environment, so which requires high pressure, high temperature, so like that of physical infrastructural requirements are there. The production cost, okay, the bulk of product produced, that is the quantity of the product produced, so manufacturing cost. So all those limitations are there in the conventional method of drug development, so the drug engineering or the drug production. By considering those limitations, these molecular biology methods can be used for the drug engineering process. So where these sort of limitations, 1 or 2 limitations can be addressed by using the molecular methods. So here the point of discussion is how microbial bioprospecting is useful for the drug engineering, or where we are going to converge these two concepts. Because drug engineering is one concept, microbial bioprospecting is the one concept. So where microbial bioprospecting, we are going to use the microorganisms for the search of new products or for the production of the products which we require for the consumption of human beings. Drug engineering is the another domain where the property of the drugs can be modified according to our need. For example, a drug may have very good efficacy, but in natural way, it may face some problem with the stability, structural stability or chemical stability, whatever may be that thing. In drug engineering, what we used to do means, we will address that issue. That means by introducing some methodologies, we will improve the stability, then that modified drug can be used for the treatment. So that kind of concept we will be call it as the drug engineering. So by converging these two things, so what we can do means, in the broader way, so we have a lot of applications and lot of advantages. The three most important area where we are going to apply these two concepts are to improve the stability of the drug, to increase the efficacy of the drug, and to increase the quantity of production. For example, if we use chemical mode of production to improve or to increase the production rate, so we need to develop a lot of infrastructural facilities. But at the same time, if we use microorganisms, especially bacteria, so the generation time of bacteria used to be 24 hours or 48 hours. So in that manner, it is easy for us, that means to produce more quantity of product. So and also the cultural requirements which need for the bacterial cultivation. So that also play a major role. So by that way, this microbial bioprospecting and drug engineering can be converged. So to improve the stability of the drug, increase the efficacy of the drug, and to increase the production rate. Okay, so what kind of drugs we have developed from the microorganisms? Of course, we have developed different type of drugs, but I have given more important segments, that means where microbes are used for the antibiotic production, AMP, antimicrobial protein production. So that's what one of our guests, that means he addressed about the, yesterday Dr. Depnoth, he addressed about the small peptides or the protein peptides, so that can be used for the drug engineering. Then immunosuppressants, anti-tumor agents, vitamins and amino acids. So these are all the major class of drugs that can be applied from the microorganisms. So these are all some of the examples. So where we can get the information about the what is the metabolite, what is the source, so what is the producer organism. So we can see that means all the microorganisms, so which has the ability to produce different kind of biomolecule, so which has the ability that means which can be used for the therapeutic applications. Okay, coming to the next point. Okay, bioprospecting is there, that can be used for the production of different kind of products by using microorganisms. Lot of diversity is there, lot of innovative products can be developed, and that can be applied in the area of drug engineering. Okay, to perform this task, what are all the basic techniques we should know or we should apply? So that is the purpose of this slide. The first step will be microbial culture methods. So how we are going to culture the microorganisms by collecting the resources from the environment. It may be from soil or water or air or any other terrestrial environment or from any other source. So how we are going to collect the microorganisms. So after collection, how we are going to culture those things. Okay, so in the earlier days, we bothered about only the microorganisms which are able to cultivatable in the lab. In the recent technologies like metagenomics and all those techniques and all, which made us to use non-culturable organisms also in this bioprospecting process. Professor Ranjit, he very well explained about the metagenomics concepts, then how that can be used for the culture, that means usage of not cultivatable microorganisms for the bioprospecting purpose. Then 16S DNA sequencing. So this is used for the identification of the microorganisms. I hope you all know that the importance of 16S DNA sequencing, why we are moving for 16S DNA sequencing instead of going for the conventional methods. So I think no need to again go into those aspects, but this molecular method of identification can be used for the identify the microorganisms which have isolated from the natural environment. Even yesterday, Professor Jayasheelan, he described about the usage of MALDI group for the microbial identification. That's also one of the hot topic, and that can also be included here. Because conventional, that means in the recent past, we are using the 16S DNA sequencing in the bioprospecting concepts. As he told yesterday rightly, so the MALDI group, it's a cost-effective method when compared with the 16S DNA sequencing method. Even that also can be used for the identification of microorganism. Here the point of discussion is, we have to use any one authenticated method to identify the organisms. That's what our purpose. Okay, we can use 16S DNA sequencing even for identification fungi and all. So more than the 16S DNA sequencing, the morphological based identification by the experts, that's one of the valuable method or the valid method that means for the identification of fungi. So even MALDI and other methods can be used. Then dialysis and chromatography. So this dialysis and chromatography plays the major role in the bioprospecting process, especially from the microbial sources, because most of the products or the drugs which you are looking for the bioactivity, so that used to be produced in the extracellular manner. So that will be available in the culture supernatant. So from the culture supernatant, so we need to remove our drug or separate our drug from all other protein molecule or any other impurities. Similarly, dialysis, of course, ammonium sulfate precipitation method is one of the most commonly used method, that means to precipitate the protein. So in that case, to remove those salts and other things and all, that means we need to go for the dialysis or any other desalting methods. Nowadays, a lot of desalting columns are available, but those things are a little bit costly, or that means we need to invest some amount. As I have initially told you, how we are going to do the research with the limited resources. So if you have the funding and if we don't have any issues, that means to procure those kind of desalting columns and all those in that, you can go for that. Or else if you have the limitation with the funding, so in that case you can go for the dialysis. Somewhat it's a laborious thing when compared with the desalting column, but it will give equally a good result to the desalting column. So different type of chromatography is there. So those kind of chromatography techniques can be used for the purpose of isolation, separation of your compound, that means our compound, then for the purification. So nowadays we have the reverse-phase chromatography and all those things and all. Those kind of techniques are used to collect the fractions also. So previously what we need to do means, if you want to fractionate the supernatant or any other molecule, so we have to run the column. So in the column, we need to collect the fractions, then each fractions will be subjected for the bioactivity screen. But now we have the provision, so in the reverse-phase chromatography, so we can collect the fractions also. So a lot of advancements are there with the chromatography. So we can get the chromatogram, simultaneously we can collect the fractions. Suppose 4 fractions are there in the given mixture means, so we can collect those 4 fractions individually based on their retention time. So that's advantageous to us. So with the minimal cost, even if you don't have the facility, those kind of facilities can be hired. Almost some of the institutions, they have the facility, so with the nominal cost. So then mass spectrometry, so that's one of the important tools which we need to use in the bioprospecting process, because most of the components are identified or that studied by using the comparative analysis. So in those concepts, so we need that mass spectrophotometry. So we have different kind of mass spectrophotometry. So all the mass spectrophotometry in one another way that can be used in the bioprospecting concept. Especially most of the drugs, which is having the nature of protein or the proteinaceous nature. So that can be studied by using the 2D gel electrophoresis. Then those spots can be subjected for the MALDI-2 analysis. Then that MALDI-2 data can be subjected for the PMF peptide mass fingerprinting. So these two concepts that was elaborately discussed by our resource person Dr. Jayasheelan. So he discussed about the 2D gel electrophoresis, even the advanced version of 2D gel electrophoresis, non-gel based method of analysis of proteins, then PMF, so what are all the freely available softwares, how the MALDI-2 data can be used, what advantages we have, what limitations we have. So all those concepts was discussed by Dr. Jayasheelan in a very neat manner. Then bioactivity screening methods. That's one of the important area. So where we should have the expertise while we are going for the bioprospecting studies. Suppose if my objective is to identify an antibiotic against a specific pathogen, for example, methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So in that case, I should know how to do antibacterial screening. Suppose if I want to isolate an anti-diabetic molecule, so in that case, I should know how to do anti-diabetic screening. Hepatoproductive activity, neuroproductive activity, nephroproductive activity, okay, anti-inflammatory activity, anti-cancer activity. So like that, the bioactivity screening methods we should have, especially, so whatever the compound we used to identify from the natural resources, especially from the microorganisms, whether it may be a bacteria, fungi or streptomyces, whatever may be the thing. First of all, we should check the cytotoxicity analysis of that particular compound which exhibits the bioactivity. Because it may have the very good bioactivity. Suppose if it is more lethal or if it is more cytotoxic to the normal cell means, in that case we have the problem of using those kind of biomolecule. So first we need to check the cytotoxicity to the normal cell. So for that we should know that means how the cytotoxicity studies can be performed. Of course, once if all those things are over, we need to go for the in vivo studies, that is the laboratory animal studies. So now of course I hope you all know that that means we have a lot of restriction on the limitation. So you need to submit your proposal to the Institutional Animal Ethical Committee. So the committee should approve the usage of animals. Then after approval, then only you can use the animals for the in vivo studies. So mostly they recommend, if possible, that means we have to go for the cell culture studies or simulation studies. If you are able to get a remarkable or a positive result, so then only you will be permitted to move to the in vivo studies. Even that's a wise decision. That means that will be, or the wise recommendation will be given by the Institutional Animal Ethical Committee. Then bioinformatic tools. So of course, yesterday Dr. Debnath also covered elaborately about the bioinformatic tools that is used for the proteomics purpose. Even Dr. Jayasheelan also he covered something, and Ranjit also he covered some aspects of the bioinformatics tools that can be used for the proteomics. So those kind of proteomics tools, that's a BMF and the sequence similarity searches, dendrogram construction, then phylogenetic tree construction, so BLAST, so like that of basic informations we need to do by using the bioinformatic tools. So even other techniques also involved in the bioprospecting, but these are all the techniques which majorly used in the bioprospecting studies. So I hope you have got an overall view, that means what are all the skills we should possess, that means before moving to the bioprospecting studies. Okay, those are all the common techniques used for the bioprospecting. Now, here we have three concepts, that is genome editing, synthetic biology and metagenomics. Of course, the name may be a different one, but in one another way we are using these techniques in our practice. If you go for the genome editing, so it's CRISPR, antisense RNA based method. So that's a currently used method for most of the genome editing process. Okay. Then if you come for the synthetic biology, so that is covered by our Professor Dr. Selvi. So where the genetic engineering tools can be used for the minimal genome concept, and then how synthetic way, that means we can develop a triad, or that means a character can be developed and that can be produced by using the minimal genome concept. Then metagenomics, the technique that is used for the non-culturable microbes to identify from the environment. So of course, these three things are, now it's a hard domain in the bioprospecting. So if you take most of the research papers, so in one another way they used to touch these three concepts. So why I am giving these three terms to you means, so obviously we have to update ourselves. Our research, we should take it to the next level. So especially those who are working in the self-financing institutions, so they may have the limitation to use the advanced facilities, but those facilities can be hired from other well-established labs. So for that purpose only I have shared this slide. But these things can be used for the bioprospecting. In the same manner, those techniques can be applied for the drug engineering also. Okay. This is a way to perform the bioprospecting studies. We have to collect the sample from environment. Then from that you have to collect the crude extract. Then for the crude extract we should check for the bioactivity. Then from that we have to find out the active fraction of the active extract. Then that can be studied physically, chemically, and for that biological activity. Then that bulk production will be carried out. Now another end, we will be identifying that organism. So we will try to find out the phylogenetic relationship of a particular organism. So for those things, as I have already told you, some of the mass spectrometric and molecular methods, those techniques can be used. Okay. Why we have to go for microbial bioprospecting? Okay, we have, it's a general term microprospecting till now we have used. So why we need to go with the microbial bioprospecting? Why not plant or why not animal? So all specialization of bioprospecting, it's a marine bioprospecting or plant bioprospecting or animal bioprospecting. So each domain has its own advantages and limitations. But if you come to the microbial bioprospecting, the reason to select the microbial bioprospecting is it's a cost effective. Because if you are going for the plant bioprospecting or animal bioprospecting, so we have to lose the plant or we have to lose the animal. So that's a most common way, that means to derive the products from the animal and the plant in most of the cases. Then that is not there in the microorganism. With a limited space, we can produce more number of microorganisms. So in that way, it's a cost effective. Then diversity of molecules. So diversity of molecules which we have obtained from the microbial resources, so that is high when compared with the plant and animal. Then less side effects, of course, in plant and animal also, that means the same concept can be applied, it's less side effects. The easy to culture, that's important one. So when compared with the plants and animals, even the marine resources, so these microorganisms, especially bacteria, it is easy to culture. So that's one of the advantage to us while we are going for the microbial bioprospecting. Then minimal production time, that's an important thing. So if you take the plant, so we have to grow the plant should reach the ripening stage, then only that means for that you need to wait. So minimum 6 months or 1 year like that we have to wait. So then only we can harvest the product. Similar in the case of animal, even nowadays that means we have the animal cell culture. Of course, technically that is possible, but for all the cells we don't have the cultures now. So we have to standardize, and other issues are there with the animal cell culture process. So when compared with those things with reference to microorganism, so we have minimal production time and easy to culture. Then availability of tools and technologies, that is for the genetic manipulation and other things for the culturing and the separation and purification of the products. For those things, the tools which is already available, so that can be used in the case of microbial bioprospecting for animal cell culture and plant cell culture and all, that means we need to develop or we need to re-modify or we need to modify the already existing ones. So like that of some of the limitations are there. But in microbials, the microbial bioprospecting, so we have a number of tools that can be applied. Then scalability issues. If you take the microbial bioprospecting, scalability that can be easily achieved when compared with, of course, we have issues with the microbial based production also with reference to the scalability, but with reference to the plant bioprospecting and animal bioprospecting or marine bioprospecting, the scalability is somewhat better with reference to the microbial bioprospecting. Then of course eco-friendly, so plant bioprospecting and animal bioprospecting, that also most of the cases that also eco-friendly one. So like this we have some of the advantages while we move with the microbial bioprospecting. Any doubt or any clarification from the participant side? Okay. Now, coming to the concept of bioprospecting and drug engineering. Sorry. So for us, we have discussed about bioprospecting, what are the tools involved in bioprospecting, why we are using bioprospecting, methodology to use the bioprospecting concept, then what is drug engineering, so for what purpose we are using drug engineering. Okay, here we are going to discuss about how this bioprospecting can be directly related with the drug engineering process. Okay. As far as my understanding, it can be used in two ways. The first one is the drugs can be produced in bulk quantities from the native bioresources itself. That means if I identify a bacteria which has the ability to produce a specific drug, so what I am going to do means by using strain improvement methods or by producing bulk quantity of that particular bacteria, so I can produce that bioactive molecule from that bacteria itself. By applying some of the genetic tools or strain improvement tools, so I can increase the production. That is one of the method. So that is by using the source itself, we are going to produce that one. That means we will isolate the bacteria from the natural resource. After isolation, so we will identify the biomolecule from that bacteria or any other microorganism. Then that compound can be studied for its structural and functional activities. Then that compound can be purified from that bacteria or the microorganism. Then that purified compound can be directly used as the drug. Maybe the genetic engineering tools or strain improvement tools that can be used to increase the production. Okay, so that is one of the method. So in another method, it's a biomimic technology. Most of you might have heard about that one. Even some of the labs they are working, even in CDMD, Center for DNA Fingerprinting, CCMB, CDRI, and other institutions, they are working with the biomimic technology. The name itself will tell you that. So we are going to mimic the compound, that's a biological compound, by using technology. That means I have identified a compound from a X source, so which has the activity of anti-cancer potency. So what I am going to do means, so instead of producing that compound from the native source itself, so I am going to study the structural characteristics of that particular compound. After studying the structural characteristics, I will come to know, or we will come to know, so what is that compound, what are the components, what are the chemical composition of that particular biomolecule. Then we are trying to produce that biomolecule in the laboratory conditions by using any other method. By using this synthetic biology method, or by using genome editing methodology, or by using any other conventional method. So those things can be, those biomolecules can be produced by using the biomimic technology. That means we are using that bioresources only to find the molecule so which exhibits the specific activity which we are looking for. So once we found the compound, we are going for the complete structural analysis. So after the complete structural analysis, we are trying to produce that same compound or the analog compound by using any other suitable methodologies which is suitable for the bulk production of pharmaceutical industries. So that is the biomimic technology. Even nowadays, most of the pharma industries, they are trying for that one, because instead of going for the native bioresources, there we have a lot of limitations. The level of production, then the purification issues, because if you take in the pharma industries, almost equally, that means the 50% of cost, that means they are spending, that means for the purification itself. Suppose 100 rupees is involved in the production cost, means 50 rupees for production and 50 rupees for the separation and the purification. So in that case, if you go, that means where we are going for the native bioresources for the production purpose. But if you look for the biomimic technology by using any one of the genome editing tool or the synthetic biology method or any other conventional method, so only we are going to identify the biomolecule from the natural resources or the bioresources. It can be a bacteria, fungi, or streptomyces or whatever may be the thing. After identification of that particular compound, that compound analogs of the same compound by using chemical method that can be produced in the bulk quantities without those restrictions, whereby we can minimize the purification cost. So that's the main advantage of that one. So by these two ways, this bioprospecting can be used for the drug engineering. That means the natural bioresources, especially the microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, streptomyces, so those things can be used to either to produce the bioactive molecule directly from those source for the drug purpose, for the therapeutic applications, or the compounds can be identified from the microorganisms. The identified bioactive molecule will be produced by using suitable technology. So by these two ways, this bioprospecting will be helpful for the drug engineering process. I hope that means I have made you clear, that means how this bioprospecting is related with the drug engineering process. Okay, so for us, we have discussed the basics of bioprospecting, especially the microbial bioprospecting and the drug engineering. Where these two concepts are converging, that means in the process of drug development, and what are the advantages, so what kind of techniques can be used for these things. So like that, the basics of this concept, that is microbial bioprospecting and drug engineering, we have discussed till now. So any doubt or any clarification from the participant side? No, okay. Then maybe another 30 minutes or 45 minutes, I have the two concepts, the studies which we have conducted in our lab by our PhD scholars. Almost they have awarded the PhD degree. So the first, one of the topic is bioprospecting potential of soil bacteria for alpha amylase inhibitory activity. So what we have done in this study means, we have isolated the soil bacteria. From the soil bacteria, we have screened for the alpha amylase inhibitory activity. Then after screening for alpha amylase inhibitory activity, that compound was extracted from the supernatant, then that was subjected for the PMF. So that was the study. So I will tell you a little bit about that study. So I hope why we are using that, why we have selected that alpha amylase inhibitory compound means, we all know that India is the capital of diabetics. So this is the number of diabetic patients figure throughout the world. So in India, more than 60 million individuals are suffering by these diabetics. Okay, so what's the role of these amylase inhibitors? So these amylase inhibitors, which will inhibit the activity of amylase, in turn, it will reduce the blood sugar. So that's the concept behind that one. So we have two kinds of alpha amylase inhibitors. So one is proteinaceous alpha amylase inhibitor, another one is non-proteinaceous alpha amylase inhibitor. In our study, we have bothered about only the proteinaceous alpha amylase inhibitor. Okay. So So these are all some of the facts that some of the alpha amylase inhibitors which is isolated from plant origin and microbial origin. This is about the non-proteinaceous alpha amylase inhibitor, that means agarmos, that's one of the thing. So that is commercially used drug agarmos. Then natural source of amylase inhibitors, there we can get it from some of the plants. Okay. So what we have done in this study is, by seeing the objective itself, you will come to know the thing. The objective of the study is to isolate the bacteria from the natural resources which exhibit the alpha amylase inhibitory activity. Okay. Then, how that alpha amylase inhibitory activity compound can be produced in the laboratory condition. Then, basic characterization of proteinaceous alpha amylase inhibitory compound by using SDS page, MALDI-TOF and peptide mass fingerprinting. Then cytotoxicity study of the isolated compound. So these are all the four major objective of the study. So this is a study methodology. So first we have collected the sample from Walpare. So it's a hill area. So why we have selected a hill area means, so the soil is the more fertile one when compared with the other area. So the diversity of bacteria or the efficacy of the bacteria to produce a specific biomolecule may be somewhat high when compared with the plain surface. So by keeping that in our mind, that means we have selected the hill area. So simply we have collected the soil sample from those things from the different points. Then we have transported the soil sample, that means to the lab. There by using the normal serial dilution agar plating method, that means we have isolated the bacteria. Then all the next step, that means we have screened the bacteria for the alpha amylase inhibitory activity. So I hope that means you all know that means how to screen the alpha amylase inhibitory activity. So you may have screened for the amylase producing ability. So by using the same methodology, by doing a little bit of modification, that means we can screen the alpha amylase inhibitory activity. Then after identifying the organism which has the ability to produce alpha amylase inhibitory compound, that organism was identified by using the 16S DNA sequencing. Then the next part of the study, we have optimized the culture condition for pH, temperature and incubation time. So in which setup, that means we are able to get the maximum production. So that we have carried out. Then to separate and purify the alpha amylase inhibitory compound, we have gone for the ammonium sulfate precipitation, then desalting by dialysis, then analytical and preparative HPLC of the alpha amylase inhibitory compound. So then the enzyme kinetic studies, then MALDI-TOF analysis and PMF. So this was the methodology. So here what I want to emphasize is, in our lab, we don't have 2D gel electrophoresis facility. We don't have MALDI-TOF. We don't have 16S DNA sequencing facility. But we have conducted this study by hiring the resources. Okay, 16S DNA sequencing, you can hire or you can have the collaboration with the labs and you can do that. In that way only we have done. Similarly, I think optimization studies we can do it in our lab. We have conical flask and culture broth and incubator. So that's more than enough. That means to do the culture optimization studies. Ammonium sulfate precipitation, of course, we can do it in all the labs. Desalting also we can do it in all the labs. HPLC also we don't have in our lab. So we have hired that facility. It is the nominal cost, 800 or 1000 rupees like that only. So reverse based HPLC. So where we have collected fractions also. So by hiring those facilities only, we have conducted this. So one of the objective of this presentation is how the studies can be conducted or the bioprospecting work can be performed by using the limited resources. As yesterday Jayasheelan told, Dr. Jayasheelan told rightly, that means the facilities are there in many places. You can use those facilities with the nominal cost. So in that way only, that means we have performed, that means we have conducted this study. So of course, the enzyme kinetics that we can do it in our lab itself. MTTT that if possible, that means if we have the cell culture, we can do it in our lab. Only thing is we need ELISA reader and CO2 incubator, that means for culturing of the cells, the animal cell culture lab, and the basic chemicals we need. If you don't have that facility, that means for 1,500 or 2,000 rupees MTTT assay, the many of the labs, they are doing that one. So we can get that facility also. So results, of course, how many samples we have collected and all those things, informations are there here. So we have collected 37 bacterial isolates for this particular study. Out of the 37 bacterial isolates, 4 isolates labeled as N16, R18, N10 and N8 showed remarkable inhibitory activity against the alpha amylase. So those 4 strains alone can be taken for the further analysis. So we have removed the remaining strains from the further study. So these are all the results for the other studies. There means other isolates. But we have selected these 4 strains. N16 it has shown, that means 74.9 for almost 75% of alpha amylase inhibitory activity. So all the tests, that means of course as we have conducted in the triplicate and all those things, the normal modalities we have followed. Then for the identification of bacterial isolates, what we have did, first we have done the gram staining. So that alone we have done in our lab. After knowing the gram staining results, we did reveal that gram staining results, that means to the agency, that means where we have given our samples for the 6' RNA sequencing. Then after obtaining the 6' RNA sequencing, then we have compared with the gram staining results. If it is broadly matches, that means we thought that means okay, of course it's a valid result. So like that we have concluded that one. The updated nucleotide sequence were submitted in the GenBank. It's available in GenBank. So the 4 isolates that was identified as the Klebsiella pneumonia BT-NGP2, we as the BT-NGP2. So this was the 16 RNA sequence of the particular bacteria. KY0946.4.61, that is the GenBank submission number ID. So where you can check the 16 RNA sequencing of this particular bacteria, that's Klebsiella pneumonia BT-NGP2. This is for Klebsiella pneumonia, phylogenetic analysis. This is Bacillus pumilus BT-NGP4. So these also the sequence also submitted in the GenBank submission. This is a phylogenetic analysis of the BT-NGP by Bacillus pumilus BT-NGP4. So this is a sequence of Bacillus pumilus BT-NGP1. So with the GenBank submission number of KY101156.1. So this is for Klebsiella pneumonia BT-NGP2. So the sequence also submitted in the GenBank. So like this. For this also, so we have given for the 16 RNA sequencing, after obtaining the sequence, After obtaining the sequence, we have done the basic local organisms, blast analysis and all those things and all, and the phylogenetic analysis, and we have found that means what is the organisms like that and all. So this is the optimization of temperature. So the 4 strains that is used for the temperature optimization. So this is for pH. So this is for incubation time. So here what we have noticed is almost in 48 hours or in some of the cases 72 hours also, that means we have got very good production. We were expecting that since it's a bacteria, maybe within 24 hours or 48 hours, that means we will get the maximum production. But by surprise, we have got, that means at the 72 hours of incubation, that means we have got the better activity in most of the cases. So that only we have kept, that means 72 hours incubation, that means for the production. So this is the production, that means the percentage of ammonium sulfate, that means used for the precipitation studies. So here also that means we have optimized for different percentage, that's the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80%. So then after that, that means we have subjected the precipitate, that means for the alpha amylase inhibitory activity. So in the 40%, that means we have observed the maximum activity. So we have kept that 40% of saturation as the required percentage of saturation for the extraction of the compound. So similarly for the cell supernatant, that means then 40% of ammonium sulfate precipitate and then the dialyzed sample. So here also that means we have got the interesting fact. What we were expecting after reading many of the reprints, gradually the inhibitory activity may get increased, so that was our initial expectation. But what happened was, in 40% ammonium sulfate precipitation, that means we have got 2.2, that means good activity when compared with the cell-free supernatant. But when we move for the dialyzed sample, so we have got a little bit of reduction in the activity. So in almost all the cases, that means we have faced the same thing. Then we were also searching with the reprints and we are not able to get any evidence and all those things and all. But then in one of the paper alone, that means we have got some information. So where the activity of this proteinases alpha amylase inhibitory activity may be influenced by the presence of some of the ions or some impurities or maybe a small peptides which is associated with the bioactive alpha amylase inhibitor molecule. So while we are moving for the dialysis, so that those molecules which have that enhanced activity might be removed. So because of that, the reduction of activity may be there. So like that only, that means we have concluded in our publications also. So this is a method, that means where we have subjected for the reverse-based HPLC. So we have got two fractions. So in the Klebsiella pneumonia Bt and GP2, so these two fractions are simultaneously collected by using the RP-HPLC. Okay. So and then each fraction that is subjected for the screening for alpha amylase inhibitor activity. So like that for the two strains, that means we have done the thing. This is for Bacillus humilus. So here of course we have got 3 or 4 fractions. So all the fractions that was collected separately, then those fractions were subjected for the alpha amylase inhibitor activity. So this is the thing for the other organisms. So like that, that means all the individual fractions were collected. So then these fractions were subjected for the screening for alpha amylase inhibitor activity. The fractions which shows the highest activity in case of Klebsiella pneumonia Bt and GP2, the fraction 1 which shows the almost 16 around 68% of inhibition activity. In Bacillus humilis, fraction 1 that shows the around 63% of alpha amylase inhibitory activity. So we have taken those fractions alone as the active fractions. We have removed the remaining fractions, and that those fractions were subjected for the Maldi-Tope analysis. So in Klebsiella pneumonia Bt and GP2, we have subjected the fraction 1 for the Maldi-Tope analysis. So this that fraction alone, that the fraction 1 alone will be subjected for the HPLC. So that shows the single peak with the retention time of 3.747. Similarly, here also that means the fraction 1 alone that means subjected for the HPLC studies. Okay. Then, to claim that this is the proteinaceous alpha amylase inhibitory activity, the isolated compound or the amylase inhibitor was treated with the proteinaceous K, and after a specific period of incubation, it was screened for the amylase inhibitory activity. So since it's a protein, the proteinaceous K, that means deactivated or denatured the protein molecule, and we are not able to find any activity. It confirms the proteinaceous nature of the alpha amylase inhibitor. So this was the effect of pH on the alpha amylase inhibitor. Maybe almost an alkaline pH, you are able to get the reduction in the inhibition. Similarly, it's for the storage condition. So we have stored in 4 degree and 20 degrees for the 6 months. That means after that, that means how the activity was there. Of course, in the cold storage, that means you are not able to get much deviation in the inhibition activity. So it suggests that means these compounds can be stored in the cold storage. Okay. So this for the find out the mode of inhibition. So So the mode of inhibition suggests that it's an uncompetitive mode. The place where we have false, that's the Km value that depends upon that we can find out whether it's a competitive mode of inhibition or non-competitive mode or uncompetitive mode of inhibition. So the identified compound have the uncompetitive. So by this, that means we have conducted the studies. So almost a 63 kilodalton protein that was noted in the organisms. Okay. So this is a Marley-Tof analysis of the fraction 1, which is isolated from the Klebsiella pneumonia. So here, how we have managed this situation means that I want to share with you. Since we don't have the 2D gel electrophoresis facilities, we may not be able to purify the protein further. So instead of that, what we have done means, obviously, by luckily we have got only 2 fractions in the supernatant. Then while we are moving for the reverse-based HPLC, there we have isolated the 2 fractions in the separate manner. The fraction 1 which shows the highest activity, that was further subjected for the HPLC. Even that fraction also collected individually. Since it gives you a single peak, so we have given that fraction to the Marley-Tof analysis. By assuming that, that means you will not have other contaminants or other things, that means other impurities, that means in that fraction. To some extent, that means you have got the good results for the Marley-Tof, then that was subjected for the PMF. So then we have performed the cytotoxicity analysis. So obviously that means we don't find much of the cytotoxic effect. So in that case, that means the identified compound, so that don't have any toxic effect on the normals. Okay. So that's the study. So the whole summary, so we have isolated 4 organisms, and that was screened for the alpha amylase inhibitory activity. So the organisms exhibited alpha amylase inhibitory activity was identified in 16S DNA sequencing. Then the sequence was submitted to the GenBank. Then the cultural conditions were optimized. 40% of ammonium sulfate precipitation was used as the standard, that means to precipitate the compound. Then by using reverse-based HPLC and dialysis and all those things, and all the compounds were separated. Then the single fraction that is separated from the RP-HPLC that was subjected for the Marley-Tof analysis. Then that information was subjected for the PMF, peptide mass fingerprinting. So this was the whole study. So future directions, that means we need to study the structural aspect of that particular compound, and the further identification has to be carried out. Then the in vivo studies have to be carried out, that means to perform, that means to authenticate the results which we have obtained in the in vitro studies. So those things are going on right now. So maybe another 6 months or 1 year, that means we will be in the line, that means to complete those protocols. So here what I want to share with you means, almost for the past 4 days, you all are listening the resource person's talk. Whatever the technique they have covered in one another manner, that we have used for the studies, but still we don't have that facility in our lab. So that's what I want to communicate to you. Most of the people, those who have the feel that means without facilities or without limited infrastructures, of course we have some problem in the functioning of the lab and all those things and all. So you can consider these points, how those limited infrastructure facilities can be overcome by using these studies. Of course, we have, as last 4 days speakers that been suggest and explained about the applications of the techniques in the bioprospecting or the drug engineering process. Those techniques we have used, that means the mass spectrometry studies, Marley-Tof studies, 16S DNA sequencing, PMF, and other things and all we have included in our studies. So, but by hiring those resources. Okay, so since that means we are from the self-financing institutions, and also it's a teaching institute, so it's not the hardcore research institute. We used to have the basic research facilities and little bit advanced facilities, not the highly sophisticated instruments, since it's a teaching institute. So we are giving much focus on the undergraduate and the postgraduate programs. So we don't have advanced sophisticated instrumentation facilities for the research. So where we can do some sort of basic research by using the resources. So that's what the objective of this session. So far as I have covered you the basics of microbial bioprospecting, techniques involved in bioprospecting, then how that can be used in the drug engineering process. Okay, how this microbial bioprospecting and drug engineering can be converted for the to increase the stability and increase the efficacy and the quantity of the product produced. Okay, so I have given you the example study. That means how these things can be carried out and in what way it can be proceeded. So I hope that means I have clarified you the methodology that can be used for the microbial bioprospecting, in what way it can be proceeded. So what are all the techniques we should know and what are all the techniques actually we need to perform this kind of microbial bioprospecting studies. I hope that means I have explained those points to you in an understandable manner. So participants, if you have any doubts or any clarifications or any queries, so I am happy to address your queries till now. So if you have any queries, you can unmute yourself and you can. Okay, if you don't have, so maybe another 15 minutes, so I will take another 15 minutes of time, so to share about the another concept, so another 15 or 20 minutes of time to share the another concept, that means how this microbial bioprospecting can be used. Okay, so these are the publications made by Ms. Carter. Okay, so
query from Raghunath sir. Do anti-diabetic peptides inhibit glucosidase enzyme? Glucosidase enzyme. Anti-diabetic peptides inhibits glucosidase enzymes.
I think a query is raised by Dr. Raghunath. So,
So anti-diabetic peptides inhibits glucosidase enzyme.
So anti-diabetic peptides that inhibits the glucosidase enzyme activity. Yes, of course, some of the research are going on. Some of the scientists, that means they are working on that. Even a small peptide or in generally any antimicrobial proteins, so which has the inhibitory activity against the many active molecules, that means that's a study under the pipeline. Some of the people, they have reported some of the peptide also. Sorry, right now I am not able to remember the peptide name, but peptides are there. I hope that means I have answered your question. Okay, thank you. So the next concept is bioprospecting potential of seaweed associated bacteria for fibrinolytic activity. So another scholar, so she also obtained his PhD by using this topic. It's a bioprospecting potential of seaweed associated bacteria for fibrinolytic activity. So Dr. Palaniswamy from Botanical Survey of India, he told that, so we have lot of diversity with seaweeds. So since we are not directly related with the seaweed, what we have thought, why don't you study the microbes or especially the bacteria which is associated with the seaweed and how that can be used for the bioprospecting purpose. So by considering that means we have identified a particular seaweed. From Botanical Survey of India, Coimbatore only, we have identified the seaweeds. Even we have collected the seaweeds from the Rameswaram, and that was identified from the Botanical Survey of India. I hope that means Dr. Palaniswamy, I think that means he helped us, that means in that aspect. Then bacteria was isolated. Similarly, in other case, that means as like the Surya case, that means what we have done means we have identified the bacteria for the fibrinolytic activity. Okay. So why we have selected the fibrinolytic activity means to treat the blood clots. So we have the streptokinase drug that is little bit costly. So we don't have any other alternate for streptokinase enzyme. so in the market. So by keeping that in our mind, so by looking for the alternate for the streptokinase, we have searched for the fibrolytic activity, the bacteria which is associated with the seaweeds. So this is the study methodology. So as like the previous one, isolation of the microorganism, the seaweeds, then that was identified from the Botanical Survey of India, Coimbatore. Then similarly the bacteria was subjected for the seaweed, that means blood clot and the thrombolytic activities. Then that was the bacteria was identified by using the 16S-DNA sequencing. Then the cultural optimization. Then separation of the compound by using the ammonium sulfate precipitation and dialysis and all those things and all. Then RT-HPLC and the MALDI-TOF PMF. So that was the concept here. So here we have conducted, since it's a fibrolytic activity, so we don't have any other option. After checking with in vitro method, we have subjected our identified compound, that means in the in vivo method also. So we have conducted this study in the Chitra Trinamool Institute of Medical Science, Thrissur. So there one of the doctor, that means he helped us, that means to conduct this study. So we have taken the enzyme, so streptokinase enzyme as the standard. Okay, along with that streptokinase enzyme as the standard, that means we have given our identified compound or the isolated compound in different concentration, that is 0.6 mg per kg, then 1.2 mg, then 2.4 mg per kg, like that. That means we have conducted the studies. So this is the seaweeds which is isolated from the Mandapam area of Rameswaram. So that was identified from the Botanical Survey of India. From those seaweeds, we have isolated the bacteria. Okay, so these are all the associated seaweeds. So from the seaweeds, that means first we have isolated the organisms. So that organisms was named, that means along with source, that means where we have isolated the seaweed, that means from which seaweed we have isolated, we have named it as. So the highlighted one, that means which has given the very good streptokinase, that means the fibrolytic activity, SDP16, that means that which is associated with the Patina seaweed, that means the microbes which is associated with the Patina seaweed, that has given 79% of fibrolytic activity. So similarly SDS23, so SDH60, SDU51. So these are all the bacteria associated fibrolytic activity which is associated with the seaweeds. So this is a screening for fibrolytic activity. So the common routine procedures. So identification of the bacteria. So since we have isolated from our lab, we have named it as Acinetobacter calculatis NGP1. So we have submitted in the GenBank also. So this we have named it as Aeromonas hydrophila NGP4. So Aeromonas cavia, that means NGP3. Staphylococcus communis NGP2. So like that means the 4 bacteria was identified, and then based on the 16S-DNA sequencing, and that was subjected in the GenBank. So similarly as like in the previous studies, that means we have optimized the culture condition. So then production, then ammonium sulfate precipitation. Here that means we have got some deviation for alpha amylase inhibitory activity. That means we have got our active compound in the 40% of saturation of ammonium sulfate precipitation. But for fibrolytic activity, so we have got the better activity in the 80% of saturation. So for this study, that means we have taken 80% as the tool, that means to precipitate the protein. So these are all the basic informations, that means how those things are there. Interestingly, here also that means we have faced the same fact that after dialysis, that means we have got the reduction in the observed activity, biological activity. So then we have thought that means those things can be studied in detail. So we have concluded in such a way that here also that means the involvement of ions and other metals or some small subunits that is needed for the better activity. While we are going for high level purification, those kind of associated small molecules that will be removed. So in that case, we may have the reduction in the activities which was actually observed in the crude or in the partially purified state. Okay. So similarly here also that means we have subjected the supernatant, that means for the RBHPLC we have identified the different fractions and the fractions were collected. So these are all the fractions in the crude sample. So those samples, those fractions were collected individually. Then that was is from the for the 4 samples, that means this was the HPLC chromatogram. So then those fractions were subjected for the fibrinolytic activity. The fractions which shows the fraction 1, that means which shows the highest activity, that means that was subjected for further screening. So there's a plate method, and then here that means we used to create the blood clot. Then the blood clot was treated with our compound, isolated compound. You can see that in ABC, that means positive control. Then fraction 1, that means now it has sliced the clot. C, negative control, BBS buffer. So you can, the B, that means you can visualize the clot lysis. Okay. So this was the SDS page, that means we have carried out. The fraction 1 that was subjected for the RBHPLC, and the fraction was collected with the retention time of 2.3. Then that was subjected for the MALDI-TOF. The MALDI-TOF data was subjected for the PMF. So this is a MALDI-TOF spectra. So when compared with the previous study, here we have got a little bit of single peak. So it suggests that means the complexity of the compound and the other things may not be there with in this study, since we have used only the partial, because in the RBHPLC we have collected the fraction, that single fraction, so that unit was subjected for the MALDI-TOF. So we didn't go for that 2D gel and then further separation of the peptides and the spots, and then the individual spots that's not subjected for the PMF. So the fraction which we have obtained, the single fraction in the RBHPLC, so that was subjected for the MALDI-TOF. So this was the MALDI-TOF spectrum which is obtained for that. So this is a cytotoxicity studies. So here also that means we have observed, that means it's not that much toxic to the normal cell. So this is a report for that. So this is a lab animal studies, that means you can see, that means the clot formed the tail, that means 2 animals were there in the first one. Then by treating with those things, that means how the clot is removed. So in the in vivo condition. Yes, here you can see in the clear way. So based on the time interval, that means how that was 2 hours of intervals. First one you can see the whole tail, we have created the clot. Then that animal was treated. Then based on the time interval 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, you can see that means how the clot is removed. So this is a result when compared with the streptokinase, that's a standard. So this is a histopathology study. So almost, actually I am not the pathologist, so I don't have anything to discuss very deep in this aspect. But the doctors, they have told that means there is no that much damage while we are giving this compound. So that was the statement given by the doctors. So here also the future directions we are working on that. That means further structural identification and the structural analysis, and then the activity, that means how it's going to exhibit the activity. So those studies are going right now. So it may take another 6 months or 1 year, that means to complete the process. So another 2 candidates, they have submitted and they have awarded PhD degree. So under the heading of bioprospecting potential of Pseudomonas aeruginosa for its therapeutic applications, with special reference to the anti-cancer activity. So another candidate, that means bioprospecting potential of Lysnobacillus sphaericus for its therapeutic applications, with reference to the antimicrobial activity, that is antibacterial and the antifungal activity. So since based on the limitation of that time, so I didn't go for in detailed way for these 2 studies. I hope that means the studies which we have discussed here, these 2 concepts might have clearly explained to you how the bioprospecting can be used for the drug engineering process. In one, we have selected the amylase inhibitor, proteinaceous amylase inhibitor, another one fibrinolytic compound that was identified. Both are the proteinaceous compound, so which is isolated from the bacteria. So here, why I have given this example to you means, you will get an idea, that means how the studies can be proceeded, then what are all the techniques we need to use, what are all the facilities we should have. So for that understanding only, that means I have given these 2 studies. Okay, I hope that means I have made you understand that means how these things can be used. So these results can be proceeded in any other, that means in any manner. As already I have told you, as such, these bacteria can be used for the production purpose for the concerned drug development, that is the either for the alpha malase inhibitor or for the fibrolytic activity, or these compounds can be studied in detailed manner and the structural features may be obtained. Those compounds can be, or those analogs can be produced by using any other biomimic technology. So by this way, this microbial bioprospecting will be a potential tool for us for the drug engineering. So I hope that means I have made you understand that means the basic concepts of bioprospecting and drug engineering, especially the microbial bioprospecting and drug engineering. So I should thank the contributors. So Surya I.K. Mohammed, who is my first PhD scholar, that means who worked on the bioprospecting potential of soil bacteria for alpha malase inhibitory activity. So currently he is working as the PDF in the CCMB, one of the scientist lab. So Bivya PG, so who worked on the fibrolytic activity, so who carried out a lot of, it means the in vivo studies in other labs by getting help from the other labs and all those things and all. And Dr. Dharmaraj and Dr. Arun, that means who are working with the bioprospecting potential of Lysinum bacillus sphaericus and the Pseudomonas aeruginosa for anti-cancer activities and the antimicrobial activities. The information I have shared you is it's the output of these four scholars' work. So in that sense, I should thank all the four contributors for making me to present this session. Thank you. If any queries are there, I am happy to address your queries, whatever the knowledge I have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the most informative session in microbial bioprospecting and drug engineering. The session is open for discussion. Participants, if you have any queries, you can unmute yourself and you can ask, or else you can type it in the chat box.
Okay, thank you for your patient listening. Thanks for the opportunity. So I should thank the Atal and the management and other guest speakers also at these junctions. That means those who made me clear. That means how those techniques can be used. I hope that means now participants you can understand. That means why we have planned these peoples and the topics. That means in this FDP. So how those things are relevant to the bioprospecting and drug engineering. So thanks one and all. So I thank other speakers also, that means for the past 4 days that means who have given their lectures in an elaborate manner, that is very much useful to us. So thanks once again. So thank you, Honor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, participants. The next session will begin within 10 minutes. That will be handled by Mrs. Mangaleshwari Manjari. Kindly be on the line. Thank you.